Hey y'all, it's Heather from Compassion is the Secret Ingredient, and I am in my kitchen doing my very first YouTube cooking video. I am beyond excited, in case you couldn't tell by the smile on my face, to be doing this. This is something I've wanted to do since when I started my blog a long time ago. That has since, it's been neglected. It has been, but I'm bringing it back to life, and I'm bringing it back to life in this amazing format. So I hope that you'll join me on this journey of food cookery and YouTubery and whatever else I decide to do with it. Today, I am going to be making my Southern-Style biscuits better. So back in, I think it was 2017, I created a recipe for Southern-Style biscuits. It was a wonderful recipe. However, it used self-rising flour, which I generally do not have in my house. I only ever had it to make those biscuits. I've thought there has to be a biscuit recipe that I can come up with that is equally as amazing, but just uses normal all-purpose AP flour. And I did it. I am so proud of this recipe. It is absolutely amazing. I think it's better than my first recipe. I mean, for the sheer sake of, you don't need a specialty flour, you don't need a weird amount of coconut oil, and also I tripled the butter. For those sheer facts alone, I'm telling you, this is going to be your new favorite biscuit recipe. Let's get started. I have some of my ingredients already ready to go, but I need to get my butter ready to go. So I have a little trick here, a little tip. They have on the outside of the package those lines, those indicators that tell you where the tablespoons are, but how often than not do you unfold it and then go, 1, 2, 3. Well, my trick, my little tip here is that if you need 6 tablespoons, which this recipe calls for, you're going to simply count your 6, and then you're going to take your fingernail and you're just going to gently draw a line at that 6 mark. And that's just going to create that little indentation to let you know exactly where to cut for the exact amount of butter. Now, with that being said, if you accidentally got a little bit more butter than that in there, would it be awful? No. But baking generally is a science. So you do generally want to make sure that you are getting accurate measurements. Okay, so I've got my 6 tablespoons of butter. My butter, as you can probably tell, is a little bit soft, a little too soft. You want really cold butter. So I'm going to go ahead and slice this up, and then I'm going to put it in the freezer to chill it up a bit more. The reason why we slice and then dice the butter is so that when we put it into our biscuit mix, the butter can be evenly distributed and we don't end up with one biscuit that has amazing little lobs of butter in it and then another biscuit that doesn't have quite the amazing structure. Okay, so while the butter is in the freezer and chilling down just a bit, I'm going to go ahead and get the other ingredients pulled together. You're going to need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Yay! Yay! If you're a messy cook, like me, then you might want a little bit bigger bowl so that you're not making a ginormous mess. Okay, so 2 cups of flour is in this bowl. I'm going to go ahead and add to it our leavening agents. So this is 3 teaspoons of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and also a half a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now with a fork or a whisk, whichever you would prefer, I say a fork because you're going to want a fork for using the dough cutter anyways, so might as well use it now. You're just going to go ahead and give these dry ingredients a good stir. Okay, there we go. I'm going to check my butter real quick. It is no longer melting all over itself. So I'm going to go ahead and add my butter. I am going to add it in sections because we want to make sure, again, as much as possible that we can get it as evenly distributed as possible. I'm going to go ahead and add half of the butter. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my dough cutter. If you don't have a dough cutter, you can always use 2 forks and just press those through. However, a dough cutter makes the job just a little bit easier. You can just cover more ground with a dough cutter than you can with 2 forks. And it also requires, I feel like, less dexterity, feels better in your hand. So overall, I just prefer using the dough cutter. So I'm going to go ahead and add the remaining butter in here, and then I'm going to continue with my dough cutter. I have no giant clumps of butter. and it feels pretty good. Okay, good, good. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in the liquid. My hands are covered in flour and my face itches. The plight of the biscuit baker. Okay, so this is 2/3 of a cup almond milk with about 3/4 of a tablespoon vinegar. And what that creates is like a buttermilk type solution. And just like with the butter earlier, I'm only going to add about half of it right now. I'm going to go back through with my dough cutter, working that liquid through. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the remaining liquid. Now your dough cutter might stop being pretty useful right about now as the dough starts to form an actual dough. When you see that the moisture has been worked in, there will still be a decent amount of dry patches, and that's okay. But when you see that most of the liquid has been absorbed in nicely, you're going to go ahead and turn this out and do the final little bit of working on the board, on the counter in my case. Okay, so I'm turning the dough out now onto the counter. You can use a pastry board or a cutting board. I'm just going to get all those little bits. I have a decent amount of unincorporated flour. That's fine. This is where we're going to incorporate it. Applying as little effort as possible. We don't want to melt that butter too much more. We're just going to go ahead and start to work that into the actual dough that we need it to be. So I have incorporated almost all of that flour that remains. A little bit is still here on the counter. I'm not too concerned with that. It'll actually help to make sure that my dough doesn't stick. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm just going to press my dough out with the palm of my hand. And what you're looking for is a nice thick, I'd say a nice thick inch. But if I actually took a ruler out and measured it, it'd probably be about maybe 1.25 inches. You want it pretty thick. Now, here's another tip for you. You need to use a cookie cutter to get a good biscuit, not a cup. That can tend to put too much pressure on the edges and seal the edges down. And when you use a cookie cutter, when you put it through, you do not want to twist it because that will also seal the edges. If you seal the edges of your biscuits, they're not rising. They're not going to go anywhere. They're going to stay a little puck of a biscuit. So go straight down and do not turn. Look at that biscuit. I'm going to bring it up to you. I'm dropping flour everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and put these on a sheet pan as I cut them out. And they can touch, but I will say that I prefer that they have just a little bit of space in between them. So just a little bit of space in between them. The last one's always the least pretty, but it doesn't make it any less tasty. Go ahead and get these biscuits into the oven, 350 degrees for 10 minutes for the first round. And then we're going to flip them and give them a little vegan butter on the top. And then they will finish their cooking. So here we go, 10 minutes. I guess this is what you call B-roll. And normally I would be dancing in here or cleaning. I've reached that pathetic age where cleaning is as enjoyable as dancing. This is 30, 36. Okay, so the timer just went off on my biscuits. I pulled them out. I'm going to go ahead and give them a quick flip. You can do so with a spatula if you want, but I just like to use my fingers. You can see they are rising gorgeously. So this is just the remaining vegan butter that I had. I melted it down. I'm going to go ahead and brush it on what is now the tops. Okay, so they've been flipped. Their new tops have been buttered. I'm going to go ahead and stick this back in the oven for the final 10 minutes. Okay, so the biscuits are done. I went ahead and pulled them out of the oven. They look absolutely amazing. I mean, homemade biscuits. The smell, that sort of rustic look, you just cannot beat this. So good. I'm going to go ahead and get them onto a plate. Now, when I tell you that you don't need to butter these biscuits, you do not need to butter these biscuits. They are absolutely perfect just the way that they are. They're moist, they are delicious and flavorful. They have a fantastic texture. But if you want to put some vegan butter on them, or you want to put something else like a jam or a vegan sausage, go for it. Let's give these biscuits a taste. So freaking good. It's everything that you want in a biscuit. Be sure to like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed making biscuits with me or watching me make biscuits. Maybe that's your fetish. I don't judge. I'm not going to kink shame you. If you enjoy in a different way me making biscuits, that's okay. And remember that cooking with compassion can taste pretty damn good. Did anyone even notice that I matched my fingernails to my kitchen? Like Odin did.